All right, everybody, welcome to Building Our Power. This is Gabby.
And KT.
And we are back with another episode. Today we have a very, very special guest, Kilo.
Hello.
Do you
How
still
guys
have your
doing?
podcast, the regular podcast?
It's still available to listen to, but I don't actively record right now. I moved over to YouTube. I do DIY videos now.
Oh, word. Go and plug your stuff, man.
On YouTube, it's called Build and Destroy Daily. So you can go over there if you want to see somebody, a brand new DIY type of guy. I'm not building
Yeah.
houses yet, but I just installed. I do some things though. Check me out.
All right, check them
Cool.
out. Build and Destroy on YouTube. And what's your social media handles?
Social media, catch me on Twitter at the Reg Podcast. That's the REG Podcast at the Reg Podcast on Twitter. And you can check my website, www.broinc.org. That's my nonprofit, broinc.org.
Bet. All right. Check them out for sure. You hit us up on our social medias. KT is at KT underscore does art. I'm at Gabbeats Music. And we have changed all of our social media handles now to at Building Our PWR. We'll do a whole separate episode on this whole rebrand, but that's what it is now. It's no longer Talk It Out podcast. Everything is Building Our PWR. All right, KT, I'm gonna let you take over. Go ahead.
Okay. So today I will be the moderator. Basically, I'm just going to be asking the questions and making sure that we kind of stay on topic. But let's just start it off. Our today's topic is going to be about ADOS. So if we can just start it, what exactly is ADOS? If you can explain it, we'll just start with Gabby and then we'll go over to Kilo.
All right, ADOS is a descriptor of a certain type of people in America, American descendants of slavery. So, black people whose ancestors were slaves in America. And it's really just a more descriptive characterization of a certain set of people. There's black people, that's everybody who identifies as black in America. And then there are black people whose descendants were actually slaves and, were exploited, yada, 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 yada. So,
Kilo, do you agree that that's consensus on the definition of ADOS?
Yes, that's the definition based on lineage, but then they also have an organization, and that's a political organization based around fighting for reparations for the group that Gabby just described. Yep, that's it.
Definitely. Okay, and so for both of you guys, do you claim ADOS? Yes. I guess my question would be, do you claim ADOS? Yes or no, and why or why not?
I mean, as a description, yes, obviously my ancestors were slaves. I've tried to track them and it stops at a certain point. They were slaves. So, yes, I am American descendant of slavery. So, yeah. Will I just put that in my bio? I'm not sure right now, but definitely that is who I am.
And why do you think you wouldn't?
Just because the connotations at the moment is kind of cringy. But if somebody asks me like, "Hey, do you identify with ADOS?" Absolutely, my ancestors were slaves. So yeah. What about you, Kilo?
That's my exact same answer. I feel exactly the same way. Of course, it's like Black Lives Matter. You don't need to say it for it to be true. I don't need to claim ADOS to be it. If they gave
Right.
out reparations to ADOS, I would get some. So yes, I am part of it. But I don't believe in just joining groups and organizations with leaders who everybody. I respect Tone and Yvette, but some of the followers are handling it very gang like, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
not a fan of. So, but yeah, of course, I'm ADOS, and if anybody asks, I would defend the lineage part of it, not the group, not the people on Twitter who say certain things. I would defend the lineage of it.
For sure.
Definitely. Okay, so you did mention Yvette. So you're mentioning the founder, Yvette Carnell. She's actually a black woman who writes about politics, wealth, and race. She's the founder of ADOS, and so is Antonio Moore. So, with that being said, she has said in some of her videos that she does on YouTube that she would like for people who do claim ADOS to have some sort of paperwork in regards to that. So, what do you guys say to that? Is that something that you would be opposed to, or would that be something that you'd be pro to make sure that everyone is able to get the reparations that they need based on, I guess, that paperwork?
Kilo, you can go first.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, like, even though, like Gabby said, when you do searches on your family, it stops at a certain time. It's very, very easy for us to figure out if we descended from slaves in America. First of all, because black immigration wasn't really allowed in America until like the 60s.
Right.
So pretty much all the black people who were here, mostly, if they were legal, before like 1950, were descendants of slaves. Almost all of them, pretty much. So it's very, if your family was here in any time in the 1800s, which the census for black people is documented in 1870, very good. If you find family in 1870 in America, you are an ADOS. It's very easy to tell. So yeah, I'm not against documentation to show. I think she meant more so for people who want to be chapter members and chapter leaders and stuff like that. As far as reparations go, of course, you would have to prove you belong to ADOS to get reparations, though. But not to, you wouldn't have to prove it to Yvette. You would have to prove it to the government.
Mm. Okay.
Right.
What about you,
Yeah.
Gabby?
I mean, yeah, of course. I don't see why anybody would be um against that unless they were not a descendant of slaves and was still trying to hop on the reparations train. Because I mean, that's basic, and that's an easy way to just figure it out real fast. Um, and then of course you'll decipher some stuff out after, but that's the quickest way to kind of filter out a lot of people.
Okay, so I kind of am curious because you say that it would be a good thing for them to have some sort of paperwork, etc. So my thing is that some people are saying that that would marginalize and oppress black communities more often. So even in instance where black communities may need more funding and things like that, if you specified it to ADOS, then that may marginalize black communities as a whole in the states and in cities. So do y'all think that's true or no?
Can you explain more why would that marginalize it more?
Yeah,
I
so
haven't heard that.
basically what there's oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I haven't heard that, so I don't know the explanation.
Yeah, of course. So basically, what they say is that, let's see here. I'm going to read this off. It says, on the cups of Black
Where
Lives
are you
Matter.
reading that from?
Oh, I'm reading this from ibw21.org. It's an overview of ADOS. On the cups of Black Lives Matter, and in the middle of the International Decade for People of African Descent, a fringe movement called Descendants of Slavery has emerged to systematically fracture black communities and directly attack black unity or pan Africanism among the U.S. black population. It basically says that if implemented so called slave papers, the end result of these policies that could be created would weaken, further marginalized black populations. It says that because ADOS is apparently oftentimes aligned with groups of similar beliefs of the foundational Black Americans, which is
Oh,
with
no.
Tariq Nasheed. Uh, and despite its claimed reparations focus, apparently ADOS is not a movement that has any type of legitimacy. It says it operates sort of like a Trojan horse, and all it does is infiltrate the black community. It hijacks black American identity and contaminates legitimate causes like the fight for reparations and civil rights. So, with that being said, is that something that you guys think too, or is that just garbage?
Well, I mean, no. Well, I just saw the other day they posted like a little what do you call it? Like a little caveat or something on their website that said they don't discriminate against So we'll get into that, but they don't discriminate against sexual orientation, gender, nothing like that, and that they do not associate with Tariq Nasheed. I mean, if you look at the videos, they had a falling out. I'm glad that that's over with because that's what kind of made turn me off because that man is trash. But as far as it, from what I see, Antonio and Yvette, their intentions for the most part are pure. It in the beginning, it was just explaining, the social conditions, the oppression that a specific group of people had to endure, and how even to this day that group of people is being overlooked by um other people, other black people who do not come from the same circumstances. And I think with any movement you're going to get all types of people, and some people have harped on that anti-immigrant tip, and that has caused some division just in the black community as a whole from that. But I don't know if that can all be attributed to Yvette and Tone, because I mean you can only say so much and people can run with it and do whatever. I do think they need to somehow try to get a hold on the people in the messaging, but that's not the intention. I don't think. What you think, Kilo?
First of all, let's start here. That what you just read, KT, came from a website that is clearly in opposition of ADOS. That's first, right? Second, if you trace the history of that, whoever wrote that, I bet you will see a hard line in the timeline of when they were not talking about reparations at all, and then when they started talking about reparations as a way to debate what ADOS is saying. Really, and what I'm trying to say is they didn't care anything about reparations before it it became a big deal because of Yvette and Tom. Um, Secondly, there's probably two cities in America, New York and maybe Miami. I'm just saying maybe Miami because I don't know how to break down. I know Florida is a lot of mixed black people, right? Maybe two cities in America where there's a significant enough immigrant black population for them to think that giving just a West son would mess everybody up. Maybe I would say New York for sure, maybe Miami. Maybe DC, they have a lot of African people in DC, but I don't think it's just in DC. That's all the surrounding DMV, right? So they're trying to say you shouldn't give things to ADOS specifically because it might mess everybody else up.
The people
How's
be
that
left
possible?
out, I
Yeah,
guess.
people would
It's,
be
it's,
left
it's,
out of that.
right, but it's not possible because right now all black people are being left out, and nobody cares. So if you were to give 90% of the black people in America something based on what their ancestors went through, it wouldn't hurt the immigrants. It wouldn't hurt the children of immigrants. It would help them out because if you look at spending patterns, we spend our money. We live heavily on consumerism, and a lot of the businesses in America that are black businesses are immigrant businesses, black immigrant businesses. We know that a lot of the college kids that are being counted as black students, a lot of them are immigrants also. So it's not like even though black people everywhere deal with racism, not all black people in America are even dealing with racism the same way ADOS is. That's not to
Right.
say that they don't experience it. That's to say what everybody else in ADOS is trying to say. It's different for us. Why would anybody frame an argument to say if you guys get something, it'll hurt us?
Right.
Why would you frame an argument like that anyway? The way I see it, based on if you look at the history of black people throughout the world, the black people in America made, for the most part, besides Haiti, made things happen first, and then it trickled to other countries. When
Right.
1865 hit, and we got out of slavery in America based on the 13th Amendment and went to public instead of private, whatever, uh, the other countries in Africa didn't start getting free till 100 years later. And that was mostly based, not mostly, but a big portion of that was based on some of the civil rights activists in America marching for African countries. If you remember, W.E.B. Du Bois was one of the biggest speakers in Black America in the early 1900s, right? He ended
Right.
up dying in Ghana and all. He was a big proponent of Africa being free. A lot of people that were in civil rights movements and Pan African movements That started in America.
Right. That's true.
It was mostly American black people fighting for the freedom of Africans. They like if you I mean, I just don't understand how anybody could debate it. We have always been on the side of Africans. It's more recently when we started realizing that these people are pushing back against us trying to get something for us.
Right.
We never looked at them like that. So well, for the most, I know they like to throw the African booty scratcher joke out there. Like, of course, we as children we did say that, but some people, but that wasn't something that our parents told us to say. That was
Mm.
something we learned from TV or whatever. You know, we hear a lot of Africans say, "My mom told me not to talk to you black people in America." We hear it. I see
Mm-hmm.
videos of it all the time. They say we are raised to not deal with black Americans. They are thugs. They disrespect their parents. They'll hurt you. They'll get you sent to jail. I just have I download videos all the time when I see them of Nigerians and Ghanaians and a lot of just people from Africa and throughout the diaspora. Them saying specifically, my parents told me not to deal with you. We
Hmm.
don't have that in America. Our parents don't. Our parents teach us Africa is beautiful. These are your people. One day you want to go back to Africa. This is like we fantasize about this type of stuff a lot of time.
Right.
So
Yeah. And
I
yeah.
don't understand how anybody could think that if Black Americans got something that we wouldn't help everybody else get something because all these other countries have claims for reparations too. You would think they would have their own fight right now instead of pushing back against ours.
Yeah. That's really what it comes to because it's like I mean, even if we look at the statistics, like you said, a lot of black immigrants weren't allowed until after the 1960s. And then, unless you're like a refugee fleeing from like a war torn country, from a statistic that I read a while back, Nigerian immigrants are some of the is the most one of the most educated populations in the entire United States. They come from wealth, they come from privilege, they have it better than an ADOS person would ever have. And so there's two different struggles. Like yes, we're both black and yes, you may have to deal with racism. Absolutely. But when you have money and you have power and you have connects, it's different. It becomes a class thing. And as far as majority of black people that are descendants of slaves, we are still primarily in the working class. We're still not able to reach those types of levels. So I don't see why people would be pushing back. Like you said, if you're natively from another country that's been oppressed by colonizers, you go to that country and y'all fight for reparations there. But this is you're coming to a whole nother smorgasbord of BS. Like you can't come in here and try to dictate how people who have been here for 400 some years try to get their retribution. Like I mean, I don't even think they should. I'm not gonna go too far,
Let me add
but
to
yeah.
what you just said, because I like what you just said, Gabby. I didn't even want to even go there, but I will now since you brought it up. It's interesting, right? They're doing what a lot of times white women uh, in corporate America do, right? They don't show when they talk about the pay gap, right? They use the pay gap as women as a whole versus men as a whole, right?
Mm,
They won't show the white woman pay gap versus everybody else,
right.
which white women get paid $10,000 more than black men. They'll
Mm,
show you. So the reason they do that is because they get to use Hispanic and Black women's salaries coupled with theirs, which brings the entire woman's salary down.
down. Yeah.
It brings it way down because they make way more than, and Asian women make more, almost the same as white men. So it's the same thing as what a lot of the Africans do when they come here. They use the statistics of the country they came from to talk about how bad they have it. Really, they are not part of that. The reason they came here is because they had the money to come here. It's not cheap to immigrate to America.
Not at all.
It's not cheap at all. And then they came here and immediately their parents bought a house. Their parents were high end professionals. The people that they're using the statistics of the lowest of the low people in Nigeria and saying, hey, Nigerians have it like this, but you're in America. You've been in America because your family came here 30 years ago. You're not part of that group.
Right. Right.
And they're comparing their best and brightest people that came out of Nigeria. They're comparing their top 1% to all of Black America. And it's like, hey, we just work hard. We just worked harder than you guys. You need to step it up and stop complaining. When they're essentially comparing, well, if they had to compare against all Robert Smith, Oprah, Jay-Z, if they had to compare against the top people, Lonnie Johnson, people who we consider are brightest and best, then it wouldn't look the same. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's also unfair. With the way they use the numbers, they skew the numbers by not telling the whole story.
Mm. So I do want to kind of move away from this conversation just a little bit onto another topic that you guys had kind of brought up about reparations. So basically, I know that, and I'm going back to World War II. Japanese Americans during World War II were who were in internment camps basically, and they did actually end up receiving reparations from World War II, okay? And they were not in there as long as slavery happened, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you guys think? Why do you think that direct cash payments or even reparations, period, cannot be pushed to Black Americans, but it can be pushed to Japanese Americans who were, only in those camps for maybe a year or two?
I haven't really studied the process that the Japanese took to get that. Do you know anything about that, Kilo? I don't know
The only
necessarily.
thing that I've heard, because I haven't dug deep in their process of getting it, but what I've just seen along my way of reading and listening and all that, is that the Japanese were able to do it much quicker because they had a nation behind them, which is the
Oh, okay.
reason why people are pushing. So why Vet and Tone felt like we needed a distinction, because you can't just say Black people because that's too broad. So with Japanese, that's very descriptive, that's very direct and explicit as to who was done wrong and who deserves XYZ for that, right? So that's what this whole ADOS. That's why you see so many Black groups define themselves as soon as they come up with a movement. Is because in their mind, it's we need a name or a nation behind us or a large group to help fight for it. You can't just say Black. It's not. It almost that's like saying nothing because
Mm-hmm.
there's more Black
It's
people in the
crazy.
world than anybody.
Go ahead.
Right. I was gonna say it's crazy to me because the president that actually signed it into law for them to get direct payments or reparations was actually Ronald Reagan. And we all know how garbage he is. We all know how
Mm-hmm.
right wing he is. We all know how terrible he is. And he authorized $20,000 to each person that was in there from the US government because they were like, okay, well, this is obviously racism. Like, this was obviously wrong. So I just don't understand, like, why it's been so long or why it's been so hard for ADOS or Black Americans or African Americans in order to get some type of reparation. Like, do you guys think that, I mean, not obviously that you do deserve reparations, but do you think that it's time? And what would be the plan, or what do you think you should get essentially?
Well, going back to that, I just sped read the little Wikipedia page. Apparently, in 1980, they were getting pressure from the Japanese American Citizens League. I'm guessing that had to be a super big, powerful organization to push for that to get done. They got 1.6 billion, equivalent to 3.4 billion in 2019, to 82,000 Japanese Americans. Well, first of all, they always talk about the price tag. I mean, it's a lot of Black people here. It's going to be more than the 82,000 folks you giving or 8,000 people you giving a $20,000 check to. And so I think that's part of it. But I mean, that's BS. Now we see that the government can and will print money when they want to. It's just a simple fact that they don't want to. What is the incentive for these white people to give us a penny? Do you think Joe Biden cares? Do you think they, and then Let's get to
They
this.
won't even give us $600.
They won't.
Not, I mean, that's everybody who's struggling. They won't even give us $600. They had to fight between 600, 2,000, money that was already ours that we paid into taxes. So
Right.
yeah,
And then, I mean, let's talk about it. Obama was not a descendant of slaves. He has no connection to that. They don't put people in power that have any type of connection to that lineage or people that would even consider fighting for it. So unless you get somebody that's a vice president or a president who has been through what we've been through, the chances of accomplishing that are ill because they don't see it as important. They say it's been 400 years ago. They haven't done the readings to connect slavery from then to now, and they think we just over here uh just throwing a fit. They don't respect us and they don't respect what we've gone through and what we're still going through.
Hmm. I've been
So
trying to
go.
tell people that, I know y'all probably have seen the argument of, but you guys weren't alive when this was happening, right? And this is what I try to
Right.
tell them. Because there's Jim Crow slavery and there's redlining and there's everything that's still happening right now. But as far as the slavery portion of it, I wasn't alive. The payment is not for me. The payment is for my ancestors. You didn't pay. I'm just going to inherit it.
Right.
So don't think about it as you're giving me money for slavery. No, I'm just inheriting my grandparents' money because it's theirs. That's one, right?
Right.
Two, the KT said why, the why thing about it. Why haven't they given us what we should? Because first of all, the price tag is almost innumerable. It's too high.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have anything to do with us. If they would have gave our people 40 acres and a mule, we wouldn't have. That was the reparations. We wouldn't have any conversation right now about reparations. We couldn't even say that wasn't enough. If we accepted it back then, that would have been acceptance of uh, recompense for slavery. They just didn't give it to us. That's not our fault.
Right.
That's not our fault that inflation happens. What is 40 acres and a mule worth now for the there's 4 million people who got freed back then, the tens of millions of people now who descended from those people. It's not our fault. They should have given it to them back then. It's not like black people are just asking for reparations. We've been asking for 150 years.
Right.
It's gotten so loud now because Yvette and Tone have been consistently growing and growing and growing, which I don't know if you remember, Gabby, you put me that before I even came up with this ADOS thing. When I was talking to y'all on Talk It Out podcast, and you told
Oh
me
yeah,
go
yeah,
listen
yeah.
to this lady. That was 2016. So we've been even listening to her before she even came up with this thing when she was on there with Army, who was half Black American and half Nigerian.
Mm-hmm.
Um, before they even came up with this, but yeah, I think that it would include cash payments. It would include some type of long-term tax-free living and income. It would have to include some type of education grants, aka scholarships for everybody, full scholarships
Mm-hmm.
for everybody. And I think that it has to include federal government and state governments. I don't think that we can just expect everything to come from the federal government. Some of these states, like a state like Oregon, they didn't even allow black people in the whole state until like the 1920s or something like that. They,
Wow.
they didn't have slavery, they just didn't allow black people to live there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So just think about stuff like so even some of these states that never had legal state slavery, like New Hampshire and things like that, they still had other laws that kind of led to the disenfranchisement of black people. If you have a state where pretty much white people are moving there and grabbing hundreds of or thousands of acres of land for free, and you're telling black people they can't come at all, just don't even come, don't cross the line or we'll kill you, you owe reparations also. And a couple of those Western states were like that. So yeah, we need land, we need money, and the money should be what they say 19 trillion or more. It should be
Mm-hmm.
it should sound ridiculous. The number should be so
Yeah.
high it sounds ridiculous, right? Payments, education, land, etc. Whatever Yvette and Tone can come up with, because they have Sandy Darity on the working with them also, who was an expert economist and has been studying reparations for decades. Whatever they come up with, I'm with that.
It's something do you have something?
I was going to say,
Go
they
ahead.
do actually have a roadmap to reparations on their website. It's ADOS101.com. So if you guys did want to look at it, you definitely could. They basically just tell you what their thoughts are on, or what their thoughts on it, and what they expect to kind of, be the option to go through with reparations. So,
Something I find that's interesting. We're talking about these leftist, socialist, communist spaces that are predominantly white, predominantly men. These people, they can understand exploitation from corporations, but when you tie it to, let's go back to slavery, and let's talk about how this entire country exploited the labor of black people for hundreds of years, and there needs to be some type of retribution for that, then you lost them. I'm trying to see where the disconnect is, KT, because you're white and you're a leftist.
mm-hmm.
How can they see that a boss paying you $7 an hour to work at a warehouse where they make billions of dollars in profit is wrong and should be overthrown and should not exist? But when it comes to slavery, they may say it's wrong, but they don't think that anything should be done about it as far as um, reparation.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, why do I think they do that? I think they do that because of the same reason that white men and white people were over unions. Whenever unions were a big thing, like back in the 50s and 60s. Um, and I say that because white people, I guess in our brains, it's just put on us that, oh, we're always going to be in power. Oh, we're the powerful ones. Oh, we're the powerful ones. So we always have this thought in our brain that, oh, one of these days, we're going to be a millionaire. We're going to be a billionaire like the boss, right? And so you give white people just an inch of power, and you ignore the fact that racism exists, and you ignore the fact that there have been black communists, black leftists, specifically black women leftists, who have made a detriment, or not a detrimental, but have made a huge important impact on how communism and leftist spaces are now today. That's what you get. You get those gross men or gross women who think that the only road to I guess reparations or solidarity is through class reductionism, who think that the only road to that is going to be to, ignoring the needs of people who have actually been oppressed. Not you, Joseph, not you, John, not you, Janet, not you,
Right.
Karen, who's actually been oppressed have been black people in America, have been queer people in America, have been people of color in America. And so I think that's really where it is. They just think they hold the power, so why not?
And Kilo, I'll ask you this because I saw this trash guy. We talk about him all the time, Vosh. He's an apparently a libertarian socialist, whatever the heck. But he did it. He went all the way through from slavery to Jim Crow to the stuff we going through now. He hit every mark. But when it came to the end of it, he said, I don't think it should be a cash payment. I think reparations should come through governmental programs and some bull stuff like that. What do you think about people that say that it shouldn't be a cash payment, a check? It should just be going to college for free, getting
That's
why
racism.
can't I say
Let me tell you
My
why. First of
gosh.
all, let me go back and add one more thing to the why are we not receiving it like other people have, receiving reparations like other people have, right? No other group who fought for reparations had people within that group loudly telling everybody we don't need it.
mm,
We have a lot of black people, and immigrant black people and black American physically and phenotypically we look exactly the same. You can't tell us apart. So if a black person gets famous and they're a child of an immigrant, they just look like a black person. So if they get on
right.
CNN and say we don't need this, we need to get out here and work hard, the society at large will say, look at this black person, they did it. You need to go out and work. You don't need reparations. Okay, that's first. Or that's to add to the last answer I gave. But then with this whole people saying we don't need cash payments, that goes back to the whole you know what's best for us as a white person.
Right.
Because you think that if we get money, we'll do something stupid with it. Even if we did, if I got $10 million and I went and bought 30 million water bottles, that's my money to do it. It shouldn't matter what
Exactly.
I do with my money. So that I think that's where that comes from. The whole idea that black people don't know how to handle money is where that whole you don't need money thing comes from. And on top of the fact that every single person who thought about reparations critically, they know that the number is going to be so large that it doesn't make sense. That's why they're scared of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something interesting too. Like the fact that, first of all, this white man saying what I don't need.
Right.
Secondly, my ancestors for 400 years had no days off, were beaten nearly to death, forced to work when they were pregnant, when they didn't have limbs, when they were sick. If I want to spend all my money on the most frivolous thing, that is my right. You know what I'm saying? It's not like you're doing me a favor by giving me something. Like that's like me working for a job, and you finally paying me 40 years later, and you saying, "Well, you better not spend this." You're not gonna tell me what to do with this money.
Right. Or
Man,
tell me
these
you're
white
not
people
gonna
are
pay me.
insane.
Or tell me you're not gonna pay me because no, you don't actually need money for the work. You can go to school and keep working for nothing. What?
Right?
It's crazy.
Why you're telling me? Think about this: the people that's saying go to school, they acting like we already don't know college is a scam. So I'm going to school for what exactly? To struggle some more? No, no. That reparations number should be so high that black people can be able to live comfortably in this society and be able to go to college if they want to and be able to get loans for businesses if they want to. That's just a tag along. But man,
Let me add to it also. And then I want to ask you something real quick, KT. You also what I just said about the black immigrants that get on TV and say we don't need this, and really they have no claim to it at all. There's a lot of white people who weren't here either,
yep.
in when slavery was going on, and they just look white, so we just assume they're white Americans. They don't have an accent, so hey, they must be American. They must have some type of say so in this because they're white. They had they weren't here either. A lot of these people came from immigrant children too, or grandparents. Their
Mm-hmm.
grandparents most likely were immigrants, and they have not. They don't even have anything to do with the Confederate South. They weren't here. So people who were not involved at all have the most to say about it.
Yep.
If your grandparents, like a lot of people like to throw out, my grandparents didn't own slaves. Well, why are you talking about it now?
Exactly.
There's a lot of white people whose grandparents did own slaves. Like, are we trying to act like that it didn't happen or what? So you got a lot of people who just want to give input on it and input contra or opposing it when they don't even have any valid critiques of it. Besides, you just don't need it. Just go work hard. That's not a critique of reparations. It's a payment. Now, KT, was your family here before the Civil War?
Oh gosh. Trying to think. We recently did a thing on what's that website called?
Ancestry.
Ancestry. But I can't go back very far on my dad's side at all. I don't think that they were.
Hmm.
But what I do know is that my mom's side is definitely from Mississippi. They definitely were racist and they definitely owned slaves.
Okay.
So, with that being said, yeah, I mean, they're pretty much garbage on that side. But on my dad's side, not that I know of.
Okay.
Maybe black. Uh, but yeah, so you would have something. You wouldn't have nothing to say no way either.
No, I mean,
But
it's not my
as
place.
far as you're right, Kilo, and I wasn't thinking about that. They be having literally a white person. They daddy just came from Russia like 30 years ago, talking about what black folks don't need.
Right.
These people are crazy. You have any other questions before I go into it?
There was no other questions.
Well, let's talk about some of the controversy with the ADOS thing real quick, and then
Okay,
we'll
well,
go
there
on
was
from
one other thing that I did want to mention with the ADOS thing. So, apparently, and again, this is from the IBW21.org website because I want it to be controversial, but ADOS leaders apparently use work of deceased black leaders like Queen Mother Audley Moore and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in their campaigns in order to build trust in the black community. With that being said, basically what they say is that they are using her. They're what do you call it? They're basically co-opting her movement, is what they're saying. They're co-opting her movement and turning it into a white supremacist movement to get the black vote. And so
I did hear about that. Like
what they say is that apparently Yvette works with she works with fake progressive front and organizations linked to white nativist, supremacist, and eugenic supporters of John Tayton. So I guess that's kind of my question surrounding that is Yvette good? Is what she's saying always right? Are we always gonna listen to her? Or like where do we stand with Yvette herself? I guess I should ask.
you know, you can go first.
First of all, this is typical political stuff right here. So what they do is, if just like let's say if I decide to get into politics, right now, if I decide I'm going into politics, they'll say he has been a guest on a communist platform and he is anti-American because I'm on this show right here. That's
Right.
just how they do it. They
Right.
don't like so. Yvette could have had a conversation with somebody one time, and then or she could be part of I know she is part of an organization that is about American labor, and some of the people that lead it are white supremacists, but it just happens to also discuss American labor, which black people have a problem getting jobs in America. So that movement could benefit black Americans, but since there are racists in it, they're going to tie her to the racists, and say she's
Mm-hmm.
part of their agenda. But I'll say that I don't listen to anybody 100%. I think there's good ideas from all parts of of the black progressive movements. First of all, Yvette is not saying that she invented black liberation ideas. So to say
Right.
that she is co-opting somebody else's movement, that person laid a groundwork or laid a foundation, and somebody picked it up and is running with it. What's wrong with that? That's what we are supposed to do. You can't
Right.
say a black person that wants to be free took Harriet Tubman's ideas. That doesn't even make sense. Like nobody can invent the idea of liberation for people who being oppressed. So I just think that some people they're just looking for any type of way, and they are. I think they're being funded by some high powerful people. They're looking for any type of way to shut this whole thing down or to um, mix and confuse everybody by just throwing out as many things as they can about Yvette and just hoping that something sticks and the whole thing falls apart. That's what I think.
Yeah, and I saw that like there was a hashtag ADOS is MAGA like um around the time the election was about to start, and Yvette and them was saying telling folks not to vote for Joe Biden but vote down ballot democratically. And I was for it anyway, because I don't really get down with voting no way. But they were saying, well, y'all are working for Donald Trump because y'all are telling black folks not to vote. And I'm like, are we still on this kindergarten level of logic at this point? Like, at a certain point, we gotta just use our brains. Somebody telling somebody else to not vote for somebody who is not doing something specifically to address your needs does not mean they're working for the Republican Party. And even like yeah, I mean, you can look at somebody's funding and say, yeah, that's kind of shady. Maybe we should look into this. It's not the best look. I'm always curious about who's funding who. But if the core of their message is something that is pure and right, and they're actually doing something actively. I mean, they got Cornell West. Everybody loves Cornell West. Even he on board with the core of the message. I think that should be more important than who had lunch with who got money from who, you know,
And
because
Yvette,
unless
okay,
go ahead,
sorry. Go ahead.
you good, go ahead.
Oh no, Yvette, they haven't even gotten money from anybody, any big organizations. They get all their money from donations, and they're about to start having chapter members pay dues because they don't have a lot of money. So I don't
Yeah,
understand this. I think people take a whole bunch of different arguments and throw them together and just hope that it'll stick with Yvette.
yeah, and it's unfortunate because it kind of like you said, it takes away from the message, but then also some of that framing around ADOS being MAGA or whatever is because of the followers. Some of them are going on tangents and doing their own thing. I don't. What do you think can be done about that, Kilo? Because I mean, if you get chapters and they're converting more people to the movement or whatever, you're gonna have these fringe people, and they're starting to tarnish some of the good that's being done.
Okay, do KT and Gabby, do y'all think black people are a monolith?
No, not at all.
Okay, but we no nobody thinks black people are a monolith, right? And it's specifically the black people that are writing the IW, the thing that you read, KT, right? They don't think black people are all one way. They know black people are not all one way, but when it comes to ADOS, if everybody is not doing the exact same thing, they say they go pick a person that said they support Trump and say ADOS supports Trump.
Mm,
That's what they do. So we can't. We know that first of all, if we know anything, we know as black people, Gabby, we know what's really going on with black people. There's a lot of different type of black people, right?
yeah,
Whole lot of different types. Some black. If you go to a cookout, some of those black people might say, "Man, I'm effing with Trump."
yeah.
I
My
mean,
family members. Yeah,
exactly. It's just that's how black people are. We have so many different types of people. They might start an argument about, and then half the cookout might even say, I mean, he right. Trump giving us
mm-hmm.
that money. So it's not like a lot of the people on the internet are younger, more progressive people, but the majority of black people are a little bit older,
Yep,
there's a lot of older black people, and they think they are fully down with the law and order presidents.
yeah,
If you know, so what I'm trying to say is ADOS is a lineage. Nobody is more ADOS than somebody else unless you talk, mixed people or whatever. But nobody's more ADOS than either you are or you're not.
mm-hmm.
Some of the people in that group, some of them might support XYZ, some of them might support JKI or whatever. They we can't think that everybody's about to follow one way of thinking just because they descend from American slavery. That
Right.
just does not make sense. Anybody who is framing an argument like that is only trying to cause confusion and to shut the whole thing down. That's what I think.
Yep, I mean that's pretty much it. Yeah, that was all that I had today. I definitely appreciate you guys providing your insight on that. Gabby, do you have anything else that you would like to talk about?
Um, I think that was the main thing. Yeah, those were the main things. I think that it's an important movement. I just don't want it to get derailed because we know leftist spaces can get derailed in a heartbeat. This isn't even a leftist space, but just the fact that you're fighting for black people, it automatically like makes it like not centrist and radical. So I just don't want it to get derailed, and I hope that they stay on message and they're able to actually get stuff done. And I'm hoping for the best, and I'm hoping that they can continue to convert more ADOS people because we're still fighting against the mainstream narrative at this point. But I'm hopeful, and I'm gonna keep watching from the sidelines and retweeting stuff when I need to. Uh, Anything else, Kilo?
Yeah, if anybody is listening to this and they are part of ADOS, I hope because my what I hate always is looking back at other movements and hundreds of years ago. What always happens is these groups splinter from the inside, and then 50 years later we'll find out this was some FBI person that got in there and did this. But
Right.
the reason it always happens because too often we spend too much time. We say that the fight is against racism and white supremacy and the system that put us in the situation. But then we go forward and the biggest fights happen between from one black person to another. When I saw Tariq and Yvette get into the situation and back and forth, I was like, what, this is a waste of time because now, and I don't agree with Tariq and the stuff that and a lot of his followers, they just follow him, but they just say whatever he says.
Mm.
The FBA thing is to me what I've been seeing on Twitter lately. That's the main fight now that I see a lot of ADOS people dealing with on Twitter.
Huh.
It's like I see all day, every day, people saying we got to get rid of FBA. You got to like I'm like, why? The fight is about reparations and ending a lot of this stuff that white supremacy put us in. I don't see any. I should see more of the energy towards the politics that we set up and said was the enemy.
Right.
That should be the
Right.
focus. Like let's just stay focused on it. I always say this is my saying that I came up with when I started my nonprofit. Find a leader with a plan. Follow the plan, not the leader. Because
Yep.
if you follow the leader, if the leader gets corrupt, the entire thing falls apart. Look at Marcus Garvey's situation. We don't even know if he was corrupt, but they said he was corrupt, and that whole thing fell apart.
Yeah. I mean, look at Huey Newton. I was just reading about him last night.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
So
That's the,
yeah,
yeah.
follow the plan. It's the plan is what makes the most sense. That's why it's good that ADOS they have a website and they have the roadmap and they have their ideas on here. So let's just say they get knocked off, whacked or whatever, put in jail because somebody said that they had a cult full of children or something like that. We should be able to still continue fighting for reparations without them in place. Look at what happened when
Definitely.
Martin Luther King got killed. Disco came and it was over.
Lord.
I'm just saying. Think about it.
Disco ain't got nothing to
No,
do
I'm not
with
saying. I'm
that.
saying that that was something that just it was like it became party time after that. It was like, okay, affirmative action is here. We are done fighting because Martin Luther King is not here. They
Yeah.
stopped fighting when he was done fighting because he died or he got killed.
Mhm.
Everybody else was done. Like that was our last big movement was then.
See, and that's why I'm tired of, and I'm glad that as younger generations, as we're coming up, we're realizing we don't need a leader. Like I remember, like throughout the '90s and stuff, everybody was like, "Who's gonna be the next Martin Luther King? Who's gonna be the next Malcolm X? And
Michael Jackson.
who's gonna be the next whoever?" But like you said, after that, if you put all your faith and your hope in that one leader, if something happens, it's finna unravel. But like you said, yeah. So if that's a good thing too, and it's good they're doing like the little chapters and stuff like that. But as far as infighting goes, for some reason, when you go into these leftist spaces, that's even like in the communist spaces, that's in the
We love it.
feminist spaces, that's in the queer spaces, you try to do what's right, and if because you're so focused on this is the plan, this is the goal, you can sometimes get sidetracked by people, and you can easily fall astray.
I was gonna actually say, think about how, like in more recent history, how Bernie Sanders was like a huge person for us during
Yep.
the election, and how everyone was like, "Oh, Bernie, 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 Bernie. He's our leader. He's our leader. He's the person who we're gonna be pushing behind. Everybody needs to be providing this to Bernie, 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 Bernie." Then he basically gave up on us again.
And
So,
everything
and
went
guess
to
what? And then
disarray.
it was, well, you gotta vote for Joe Biden now. Like after that. And it was just like, are you serious right now? Like y'all are the most disgusting, non-moral having people I have ever in my whole life dealt with. On top of that, like not just Bernie Sanders, but like whenever we put some kind of like celebrity whatever on people like AOC and Bernie Sanders specifically, and the squad. Like they've basically become celebrities now in leftist spaces. Why? Like y'all don't need to be focusing on buying a T-shirt from AOC. You need to be focused on the policies that these people are pushing
And we're
out.
going on a tangent, but that goes into it because the reason that there's so much fighting now is because people are calling out AOC and the squad and saying y'all ain't doing jack. And just because of that, that will cause so much infighting
Yeah.
that nobody's fighting for the stuff we need right now, which is a $2,000 stimulus every month, and Medicare for all, and reparations.
Money will corrupt almost anybody. And I would just want to say one more thing, if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
White men have the formula, and it's I think it's in their DNA, right?
Mm,
They are the best followers on the planet. They if like that's why they do so good in the military, and they do so good in wartime with strategies and stuff like that because when they trust somebody as their leader, they will
mm-hmm.
follow them off a cliff. They'll like literally walk behind them until they land and break every bone in their body because they believe
Wow.
that much in. When they believe in somebody, they don't. They're if think about all the white male spaces, and they don't have these same issues that what you call progressive spaces and leftist spaces. Is because when they get behind somebody, they are going. That's how Hitler became who he became. A whole bunch of white men said he's right, and then they followed him until destruction. Like that. This is how this
Yep.
happens.
I mean, look at Trump right now. Look at Trump.
Exactly.
These
They'll
folks
follow
still
these.
saying that man ain't wrong.
Exactly. White men will follow their leader anywhere. They don't care. They don't fight back. They will just. Even though we see what's going on in Oregon right now, that's not. That's like that's just them thinking we're paying homage to the founders of the country. They were rebellious, so we can be rebellious too. That's still them
Mm-hmm.
following who they deem to be their leaders. That's the. I don't know if y'all are hip to the 3%. That's pretty much. That's the woke. That's the super woke militant white people right there. The 3% feel like only it took 3% of them to take America from the British. So uh,
Wow.
that like they have that thing down to a science, being soldiers and following
Yeah.
instructions and going straight and just looking straight at the goal. Yeah, I don't know if everybody else needs to get like that, but I just know that that's the reason their movements don't fracture the same way everybody else's movements do.
I think that part of that has to do with the power that they think that they hold. You know what I'm saying? Like that, or even the power that they do hold in society. Period. They think that okay, well, I already have all this power. These people have already provided me this power. I've had the power since the beginning. There's no point in me not following this leader because if I do continue to follow this white man, then I'm just gonna gain even more power. Why would I follow anyone else besides this random white dude that I want to follow? I think that has a lot to do with the power structure and things like that we're currently in.
That definitely could play its part too because they have
Also,
nothing to lose though. They have, I mean, they literally have nothing to lose. They know nothing is going to systemically change for them
right,
to not be in power. With black folks, it's like, shoot, we damn near making it now. We barely making it. We trying to do something, so you're fighting really hard for it, and you don't want anybody to derail it or whatever. And so it just everybody just on edge. You ain't got time to relax. Everybody just we gotta do this. We got and it kind of. But yeah, well, yeah,
The
this
the
was
we
white.
went on a tangent,
yeah, we
but
did.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, this was a good discussion. I enjoyed this, Kilo. We didn't even
Thank
end up
y'all.
fighting this time. I'm disappointed.
me too.
But yeah, again, plug all your social media and your channel and all that stuff before we get out of here.
Yes, please subscribe to Build and Destroy Daily on YouTube. It's my little DIY thing. New video coming within the next 2 days, and it's Twitter at the REG podcast on Twitter, and then my nonprofit website www.broinc.org. Check me out. Thank you.
All right. And make sure you hit us up, KT at KT underscore does art, Gabby at Gabbeats Music, GABBEATS Music. Remember, all our social media has changed to at Building Our PWR. This is now the Building Our Power podcast. But, we bring in the same Talk It Out charm. All right, guys, that's it. Make sure you comment if you have something you'd like to add, share the episode, all that good stuff. And we're out.